What's up, everybody? Today we are talking about the best and worst cards in Marvel Snap. Now, my very first videos on this channel, I talked about the best cards at each cost as well as the worst cards, and that was a couple months ago, and things have changed. Some of those cards have been buffed, some of the bad ones are now better, and some of the good ones did get nerfed or the meta kind of switched, and those cards are no longer as prominent and as strong as they once were. So I think I'm going to need to make this a bit of a regular occurrence, whether it's a monthly thing or just once every 2 or 3 months. I can go ahead and update you guys on what I believe to be the best and worst cards by cost in Marvel Snap. So let's get into it. We've got our game open here. We're looking at the different cards. Cost 1, I think the best card for me, it's close between this one and Kitty Pryde, but I'm actually giving it to Bast. I mean, Bast is just so good. It's a 1 cost, it's only 1 power, but you're not relying on the power on the board. You're relying on the power that gets added to your hand, and it can buff all the cards in your hand to being 3 power. So what's great about Bast is on reveal, so even if your opponent drops a Killmonger and kills it, it doesn't matter. Bast already did its thing. Okay, and a turn 1 Bast can just add so much power to your hand if it's hitting a card like Mystique or Cerebro or Bishop, Angela, can even hit Kitty Pryde or Mysterio. There's so many great targets of cards that are naturally just 0 or 1 power as their base power, and they get buffed up, and that's so much power to your hand. It works with Sarah Control Monkey deck, it works with Cerebro, it works with a bounce deck, Mr. Negative decks, Zoo decks. I mean, there's so many decks. It's not just one niche spot that Bast works in, and that's really what gives it the #1 spot for me. Okay, the fact that it's so general and it's just so good, and it can be a game winner. Okay, the best cards, they can be game-winning cards, and they can do that in multiple situations, not just one niche scenario. So I'm giving the #1 spot for 1 cost to Bast. For what I believe to be the worst 1-drop, I actually don't think this has changed for me. There are some bad 1-drops in Snap, and some of the newer 1-drops that they just introduced are also very bad, but I think I'm still giving this to Hawkeye. Okay, Hawkeye, he's just bad. I mean, he is a 1/3 at best. It's possible he's a 1/1 if you don't have a 2-drop. Obviously, you would play him in a Zoo type deck. It's just not worth it. A 1/3 is not worth it because he has no utility. And 1-drops are so vulnerable. Okay, they all get killed by Killmonger. And so if you power him up to 3 and he dies, he did nothing. Okay, at least if you're playing a card like Elektra, which is also very bad, maybe Elektra can kill something. Then even if she dies, she did something in the game because she's an on reveal. So Hawkeye doesn't have that. He's just bad. I still think he's at the bottom of my list for 1-drops. I think they should buff him. He also doesn't align that much with the other Avengers, and he does a bit. I mean, you gotta play a card next to him, but I think they can think of something better. Okay, they can think of something more unique and something stronger. So that's it for 1-drops. Best is Bast. Worst is still Hawkeye. Coming in to the 2-cost cards, we've got the new guy, and unfortunately do not have this little dude. It is Jeff. Jeff is still a pool 5 card, series 5, and costs 6,000 tokens. I unfortunately don't have him, but he is so good. I think he's just amazing. He's definitely the best 2-drop right now in my book. I mean, you can play him on a closed off location, and you even get to move him once like a Nightcrawler ability. He's just amazing. Okay, even if your opponent has Sandman down, you can play Jeff as your second card, and it's not too much to commit. You know, 2 energy is still flexible, where it's not taking up too much of your energy later in the game on turns 5 or 6. You can still get another decent powered card in there alongside Jeff, and it's not a 1-drop, so it doesn't get killed by Killmonger. Okay, that's really what sells it for me. I think Jeff is at the perfect cost. I think 2 costs is perfect for the small kind of utility card that, you know, isn't shaking up the game all at once, but he can win you some games if you have some tough locations on the board. Also slide in with Professor X. So giving that spot to Jeff. For the worst 2-drop, this one hasn't changed for me either. It's still Medusa. Okay, she has not been changed. She is still very bad. She is a 2/4 at best. She has the same problem as Hawkeye, where at best she has good stats for her cost, but she has no utility, and there's a possibility you don't get her stat boost, in which case she's a useless 2-2. Okay, if you can't play her on the middle location, she's a useless 2-2. She's just not worth it. She is just not worth it for me. Even if you power up with, Wong or some kind of on-reveal shenanigans, +2 every time, it's not big enough. Okay, you can do better. You can do bigger. Alright, so looking at some 3-cost cards, and this is where cards really start getting good in my opinion. I think 3-cost cards are overall amazing. Even the weaker ones have some potential. It's maybe the best cost in the game in terms of the quality of cards in there. Okay, and it still has a lot of cards, right? The higher pools, you kind of see less cards. There's a lot of 3-cost cards, and there's a lot of really strong ones. For my strongest, it's still Cosmo. Okay, this is one of my strong cards I'm keeping the same as what I thought a few months ago. Cosmo is just so good. Okay, I'm going to move him to the base variant here, the base art, not to be too fancy. Cosmo is amazing. He blocks so many things. There's still nothing to stop him. At one point, there will be a card they've announced. I can't remember the name, but it will prevent the ongoing abilities of the next card your opponent plays there. So your opponent could potentially predict you playing Cosmo and stop it, but that's a bit of a stretch, right? You could just wait, play Cosmo on a different lane or something. We'll see how that card works out, and it's a 1-drop, it gets killed. Cosmo still has no counters in the game. He's still the ultimate counter prevention card. You can obviously lay him down to protect your other ongoing cards from the likes of Enchantress. He can protect cards from Shang-Chi. He can stop these other tech cards, okay? He is the ultimate tech card, and he's got a good stat line. It's not a 3-4, but 3-3, it's still solid. Okay, still a decent stat line there. He's just so good. I still have him as my number 1 3-drop and one of the best cards in the game, in my opinion. Now, going into the worst cards for 3, it's tough. There are some really good cards here. Some of them are very niche. They only work in really 1 or 2 archetypes. But even then, they're just decent cards. They contribute. For the worst, I'm actually changing it to Sabretooth. Previously, I had it as Punisher. I still think Punisher is just a worse Captain America, but at least he is ongoing. He can get buffed by Spectrum and Onslaught, and he maybe has some potential with decks that add cards to your opponent's side of the board. But Sabretooth, especially now after Wolverine got buffed, I think Sabretooth is just bad. I think he's at the wrong cost, okay? Because let's not forget, we've got Deathlock at a 3 cost. Okay, he's working in destroy decks. We had Venom, who just got buffed to a 3-3, was previously a 3-1. He's working in destroy decks. Those are 2 destroy cards taking up the 3 cost spot. Sabretooth just doesn't do the same thing, okay? He doesn't help you destroy cards, and even if you destroy Sabretooth and he gets back to your hand as a 0 cost, so what? He's cost 0, okay? He's still just going to be a 4 power card. Wolverine is now buffed that every time you kill him, he bounces around the board and gets stronger. It also works great with Galactus because when you destroy his lane, he pops over to the Galactus lane. I mean, Sabretooth just doesn't really do much, okay? That 4 power ability, even if you're able to replay him for free, doesn't do anything, okay? It's not worth it. It's not even worth to play Sabretooth and then Venom, because Venom, you're going to have bigger targets, okay? There are some really big plays you can do with Venom, some Arnim Zola shenanigans. Doing him on Sabretooth is too slow. Sabretooth needs to be a 2 cost card or lower, or they need to just change his ability. In my opinion, having Sabretooth as a 3 cost, he's just outcompeted by the other destroyed cards, and I never see him played because of that. He's just bad right now. Okay, so I'm giving him my worst 3 cost card in the game at the moment. So that's it for 3. Let's move on to 4. No surprise here. This is actually another card I don't own. I'm giving this to Darkhawk. Darkhawk has consistently been so good. Second Dinner has come out and said from their data of all the gameplay ever, Darkhawk has been one of the top 10 winningest cards basically since release. Okay, since Darkhawk has been released, he has always been in the top 10 of highest win percentage cards when you draw him and when you play him. And that is nuts. Okay, he's so good. Second Dinner is now choosing to keep him as a pool 4 card for now, which everyone's pretty upset about because he's so good. Seems like they're keeping him as pool 4 for that reason. Means less people will have him, which kind of sucks for everybody like me who doesn't have him. He's just amazing. Okay, he used to even be like a 4-1 that they nerfed to 4-0. That doesn't make a big difference. He's so good. He fits in different decks. He still works with the likes of Zabu. You're obviously going to pair him up with Rock Slide and Korg. He's just a great card. For the worst 4-drop, last time I had it as Crystal. Crystal's ability is now changed to each player draws a card, which is still very bad, but I think it has some potential in some very niche decks, such as a Ronin or a Mr. Negative deck. I think Dazzler is the worst 4-drop in the game at the moment. I don't think I've ever seen my opponent play Dazzler. I really don't. I've never played her myself. She's just bad. If you have 4 cards at each location plus 6 power, that's very hard, okay? Because it's an ongoing. It's not like she gets the power and then she's got it. You could play Dazzler and you're playing a Zoo deck. Your board is full of cards. You slap Dazzler down thinking you're getting 10 power. What happens? Your opponent plays Killmonger, kills a few of your cards. Now Dazzler loses her plus 6 bonus. I mean, that's bad. It just is. I think her one benefit, I believe she still gets her plus 6 power if Galactus was played and the other 2 locations are destroyed. If you fill up that single lane, I believe Dazzler does get her plus 6 power. So that's her one benefit. Okay, that's the one good thing about Dazzler. But obviously, if you have Galactus, you're not playing Dazzler. And if you're playing against Galactus, there are better options than Dazzler. So she just doesn't fit in anywhere. There's no deck that she works well in. You can't even flip her well with Mr. Negative because she's a 4-4. Those are just bad. Either way, whether it's flipped or not, doesn't matter. She is the worst 4-drop in the game at the moment. That's how I see it. All right, let's look into some 5-cost cards. We are going to look at one card that has just been at the top for so long. We're looking at Sarah. Okay, Sarah is cards in your hand, costs 1 less, but she's just so good. I mean, if you're playing a combo deck, you need Sarah. It's that simple. Okay, the first thing you do if you're putting together a combo deck, you're thinking what combo you want, you say, okay, let me add Sarah into the deck, and then let me count up how much energy I can use. Okay, the next turn, how many cards I can play, what I can fit into one turn to make my combo work. She's also great still in Silver Surfer decks. Okay, the classic Sarah Surfer combo. You can play 3 drops on turn 6 if you've got Sarah on the board on turn 5. She works with the Sarah control decks where you've got cards like Bishop and Mysterio. Maybe you've even got Hitmonkey in there, right? Just slap down a bunch of power on the last turn. She's just good. Okay, I've even seen her in some Mr. Negative decks because she makes all your cards cheap. Again, big combos, and she's an ongoing, which means she can get buffed by Onslaught Citadel location, make all your cards cost 2 less. So Sarah's really good, and she's even better on some featured locations. I gotta give her the #1 spot. She's been at the top for so long, and very influential and core card of some decks. So for the bad cards, I think we're looking down here at my signed copy of Nick Fury. Okay, now they are doing Samuel L. Jackson dirty on this one. They are giving some shame to him. They need to buff Nick Fury. He is just not played because he is just not good. It is really that simple. He's a 5-7. They could at least make that a 5-8. 5-7's not doing too much. That's nothing crazy. He'll add 3 random 6-cost cards to your hand. Okay, well, 3 is a lot of cards. That could actually fill your hand. If you're playing a double dino deck where you want a full hand, 3 might actually be too much. Okay, you're going to miss your draw on turn 6 if you played Nick Fury on turn 5, most likely. And if you're getting 3 random 6-cost cards, I think you're going to have some decent cards. I mean, you got 3 chances to get a 6-cost that works for you. I don't think that's horrible, but I just think it's kind of pointless. You know, you'd much rather have just a good 6-cost card in your hand that started in your deck, right? It's the card you want. It's the card you have synergy with. Also, I mentioned him working with the Devil Dino deck. Well, Devil Dino costs 5. Okay, Nick Fury is directly competing with that 5 cost spot. And you're not going to compete with Devil Dino. Okay, Devil Dino, one of the best 5 energy cards since you get him in Pool 2. I mean, he's just amazing. Nick Fury doesn't work synergizing with him when he's a 5 cost. Nick Fury has no other applications. You never see him played. He's worse than White Queen, which gives you a bigger cost card, but also tells you what's in your opponent's hand and also costs 1 less. I mean, Nick Fury is just not good. They need to do something. Okay, the cards need a cost discount, or Nick Fury just needs to be more powerful. Maybe even 2 random 6 costs, maybe random cards of any cost. I don't know. They need to do something with Nick Fury because he is what I believe to be the worst 5 cost card in Marvel Snap right now, and he has been for a while in my opinion. Alright, and taking it to the 6 cost cards, there are some good cards here. I mean, you're looking at these cards. I don't own Thanos here, but he's pretty great. All of these other ones, for the most part, are awesome cards. I mean, they are really influential, really impactful, and are played to win you some big cubes. I'm giving this spot to Doctor Doom. He's just so good, and for me, what sells it on Doctor Doom is that he works in so many decks. Obviously, you're going to be playing him in decks that ramp out big cards, such as Electro decks. Okay, you can get out Doctor Doom on turn 5. Turn 6, you pop out Odin, make those Doombots spawn again. So that's really great. But also, I've seen them in just Sarah control decks, or kind of more standard control decks. You know, maybe you're using Daredevil. Just a nice, slow, steady game, maybe more tempo based. He just works. Okay, he's good in so many applications. And the fact that he can add this power to locations that are closed off is very powerful. Okay, I talked about how good Jeff is because he can add 3 power to close off locations. Doctor Doom adds 5 to those locations. Okay, splitting out 15 power over 3 locations is nuts. Being a 6/15 in essence, very strong. He is the best 6 drop because of how good he is, how many games he can win you, and how many decks he can do that in. Okay, how many archetypes he works with. Now, for the worst 6 cost card, I'm actually going with Helicarrier. My former pick for this was Orca. Orca has now been buffed. Okay, Orca is not half bad. And I'm not going to even talk about Agatha because Agatha is more of kind of a meme troll fun card. But Helicarrier is just bad. There are so many better options than Helicarrier. Obviously, a 6/10 on its own is kind of crappy. If you have a 6/10 with no ability, that kind of sucks, right? America Chavez is a 6/9, but she helps you draw your other cards faster and earlier. Okay, she'll help you draw the other 11 cards in your deck on turns 1 through 5. She's going to help you out there. Helicarrier doesn't do that. Okay, so as a 6/10, what is he doing? If you haven't discarded him, if you have to play it, it's not doing anything. It's just 10 power card, and that's not great. That's useless. I mean, you could get 10 power at a 5 cost level. So if you don't discard Helicarrier, a 6/10 is pretty bad. You really want some big effect on the last turn of the game. So you're not going to be playing it. And if you're keeping it in your hand and you do discard it, you know, it's alright. If you discard it, you get 3 random cards to your hand, and that is just alright. Okay, even if you're playing a discard deck that uses the likes of Hela to bring back all your other discarded cards, you want to be discarding some really big stuff. I mean, you could discard cards like Giganto, Magneto, Infinite, stuff that is bigger than 10 power. Okay, Helicarrier might also add random crappy low power cards to your hand, and if those end up getting discarded, what if Hela brings back those low power ones instead of your bigger powered ones, right? If the board gets full. I mean, it's just a weird scenario. I think a discard deck is obviously the only deck that you would ever put Helicarrier in, but I don't even think it's a great option there. Okay, I don't even think it's the best choice. I think you could easily skip over Helicarrier, just ignore it, never touch it. So I don't know if the card needs a buff. Okay, I mean, it's bad. I don't think it's very playable. I'm giving it the worst 6 cost in the game right now, but it's not really, you know, a good Marvel Snap character. I mean, it's just the Helicarrier, right? It's just a machine. So maybe it's just not meant to be good. Okay, maybe it doesn't have to be good. It would be nice if it was useful. At least a card like Hulkbuster can be more useful, right? If you have a deck that's going to use it with movement or just to free up space on your board. I wish Helicarrier was a bit better, but no one's really missing it too much. Okay, they're not missing out on their favorite superhero being bad because no one's favorite superhero is this Helicarrier. So that's my take on the best and worst cards in Marvel Snap for each energy cost. Let me know what you think are the best and worst cards in the comments down below, and I'll see you next time.